The snow fell in thick, silent curtains outside the manor windows. Serafina stood in the doorway of the Duke's study, her travelling cloak already fastened around her shoulders. Her hands trembled as they gripped the worn leather of her small bag. She had made her decision. She was leaving Thornwick Estate tonight. Behind the massive oak desk sat Duke Thorn Ashford. His dark eyes were fixed on the papers before him. His jaw was tight. His shoulders were rigid beneath his perfectly tailored black coat. He did not look up. He had not looked at her for 3 days. Serafina's throat burned. She waited for him to say something, anything, but he remained silent, cold, unreachable, just as he had always been. "I am leaving now, Your Grace," she said. Her voice was steady, though her heart was breaking. Thorn's hand paused over the document. For one breath, she thought he might speak, but then he dipped his pen in ink and continued writing. The scratching sound filled the silence between them. Serafina blinked back tears. She had been foolish. So foolish to think that 3 months as his hired companion could mean something more. She turned toward the door. "Goodbye, Your Grace." She took one step, then another. "Don't leave." The words were so quiet she almost missed them. Serafina froze. Her hand was on the doorframe, her breath caught in her chest. She turned, slowly. Thorn was standing now. His chair had been pushed back. His hands were pressed flat against the desk. His knuckles were white. His face was still carved from stone, but his eyes were wild, desperate. "Don't leave," he said again. This time his voice cracked. Serafina's bag slipped from her fingers and hit the floor with a soft thud. The Duke of Thornwick, the man who had never shown weakness, who had sent away every servant who tried to comfort him, who had buried his heart beneath ice for 10 long years, was asking her to stay. He had never asked anyone to stay. 3 months earlier, Serafina arrived at Thornwick Estate on a grey morning in September. The carriage wheels crunched over gravel as they pulled up to the towering stone manor. Gargoyles stared down from the roofline. Ivy crawled up the walls like grasping fingers. The place looked haunted. "This is it, miss," the driver said. He would not meet her eyes. "Good luck to you." Serafina climbed down with her single trunk. She smoothed her plain grey dress and lifted her chin. She needed this position. Her father's debts had taken everything. This was her last chance. The door opened before she could knock. A stern-faced woman in black stood there. Her hair was pulled back so tightly, it seemed to stretch her skin. "Miss Serafina Hale?" "Yes, ma'am." "I am Mrs. Davins, the housekeeper. You are late." "The roads were muddy from the rain." "His Grace does not tolerate excuses. Come." Serafina followed her inside. The entry hall was vast and cold. Marble floors gleamed. A grand staircase curved upward into shadow. Portraits lined the walls. All of them showed stern-faced men and women in old-fashioned dress. None of them smiled. "You will meet His Grace in the library," Mrs. Davins said. "He will explain your duties. Do not ask questions. Do not speak unless spoken to. And do not, under any circumstances, mention the Duchess." Serafina's stomach tightened. "The Duchess?" Mrs. Davins' face went pale. "You have already broken the first rule." They walked through a maze of corridors. Every room they passed was dark. Heavy curtains blocked the windows. Dust cloths covered the furniture. It was as if the house itself was in mourning. Finally, they reached a set of double doors. Mrs. Davins knocked twice. "Enter!" The voice from inside was deep and cold as winter stone. The library was the only room with light. A fire burned in the hearth. Shelves stretched from floor to ceiling, packed with leather-bound books. At the center of the room stood a man. Serafina's breath caught. He was tall, broad-shouldered. His hair was black as midnight and fell just past his collar. His face was all sharp angles, high cheekbones, a strong jaw, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. But it was his eyes that held her frozen. They were storm grey, empty, like looking into a frozen lake. "Miss Hale," he said. His gaze swept over her once, quick and dismissive. "You are younger than I expected." "I am 22, Your Grace." "You look 18. Heat crept up her neck. "I assure you I am capable." "Capable of what?" He moved closer. Each step was measured, controlled. "You are here because my solicitor insisted I hire a companion, someone to manage correspondence, to read to me in the evenings, to ensure I do not go completely mad in this house." His lip curled slightly. "I did not want you here. I do not need you here. But I will tolerate your presence if you follow my rules." Serafina's hands fisted in her skirt. She needed this job. She needed the money. But she would not let him treat her like dirt beneath his boot. "What are your rules, Your Grace?" His eyes narrowed, as if he had expected her to cower. "You will stay out of the East Wing. You will not ask about my family. You will not try to brighten this house with flowers or cheerful talk. You will do your work and keep silent. If I wish to speak to you, I will summon you. Otherwise, you are invisible. Do you understand?" Serafina met his gaze. "I understand perfectly, Your Grace." Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or annoyance. "Good. Mrs. Davins will show you to your room. You begin tomorrow at 8. He turned his back on her, dismissing her as if she were nothing. Serafina followed Mrs. Davins out, but as the door closed behind her, she glanced back. Thorne was standing in front of the fire. His head was bowed, his shoulders were tight. He looked like a man carrying the weight of the world. And for just a moment, Serafina wondered what had made him so cold. Her room was small but clean. A narrow bed, a washstand, a single window that looked out over the gardens, or what had once been gardens. Now they were overgrown with weeds and thorns. That night, Serafina lay awake, listening to the wind howl around the manor. She thought about the Duke's empty eyes, his harsh words, the way he had looked at her as if she were an inconvenience. But she also thought about the flicker of pain she had seen when he turned away. She did not know what had happened to the Duchess, but she knew one thing. The Duke of Thornwick was not just cold, he was broken. The first week passed in tense silence. Serafina managed correspondence. She wrote letters on the Duke's behalf. She organized his library. She read aloud from books on agriculture and estate management, while he sat in his chair, staring into the fire. He never spoke to her, unless it was to give an order. "Read the next chapter. Rewrite that letter. Leave." She obeyed. She kept her head down. She did her work. But she watched him. She noticed the way his hand shook slightly when he poured his evening brandy. She noticed how he never ate breakfast, how he spent hours staring out the window at nothing, how he flinched when a door slammed. He was haunted. One evening, as she was reading from a book of poetry, his voice cut through the room. "Stop!" Serafina looked up. Thorne was gripping the arms of his chair. His face was pale. "Your Grace?" "That poem." His voice was hoarse. "Do not read it again." She glanced down at the page. It was a love poem, something about eternal devotion and promises kept. "I apologize, Your Grace. I did not know." "You do not need to know." He stood abruptly. "That is enough for tonight. Go." Serafina closed the book. She rose and curtsied. But as she turned to leave, she heard him speak again, softer this time. "She used to read that poem to me." Serafina froze. She did not turn around. She did not ask who she was. She simply nodded and left the room. But her heart ached, because she understood now. The Duke was not cruel. He was in mourning. The breakthrough came 3 weeks into her employment. Serafina was walking through the gardens one afternoon. She had taken to exploring the grounds during her free time. The gardens were wild and tangled, but there was a strange beauty to them. Roses grew in thorny masses. Ivy climbed over broken statues. A fountain stood dry and cracked in the center. She was examining a stone bench when she heard a sound. A low, broken sound, like someone in pain. She followed it through the overgrowth until she reached a small clearing. And there, kneeling beside a marble headstone, was the Duke. His head was bowed. His hands were pressed against the stone. His shoulders shook. Serafina's throat closed. She should leave. She should give him privacy. But something held her there. Some instinct that told her he should not be alone. "Your Grace," she said softly. Thorn's head snapped up. His eyes were red. His face was wet with tears. For one heartbeat, he looked young, vulnerable, lost. Then the mask slammed back into place. "Get out!" His voice was rough, dangerous. "Your Grace, I said get out!" He stood. His fists were clenched. His whole body was shaking with rage, or grief, or both. Serafina did not move. "No." Thorn stared at her. "What did you say?" "I said no." She took a step closer. Her heart was pounding. "You can shout at me, you can dismiss me, but I will not leave you here alone." His jaw worked. His eyes were blazing. "You do not know what you are talking about." "Then tell me." Silence stretched between them. The wind rustled through the dead leaves. A crow cawed in the distance. Finally, Thorn looked away. "Her name was Eleanor," he said. His voice was hollow. "She was my wife. She died 3 years ago, in childbirth. The baby died too." Serafina's chest tightened. "I am so sorry." "I do not want your pity." He turned back to the headstone. "I want nothing from you. Nothing from anyone." "Then why did you hire me?" He laughed bitterly. "Because my solicitor threatened to have me declared unfit to manage my own estate. He said I was wasting away, that I needed someone to pull me back from the edge." He looked at her then. His eyes were so full of pain it hurt to meet them. "But I do not want to be pulled back. I want to stay here, in the dark, where I belong." Serafina stepped closer. She stopped just beside him, close enough to touch, but she did not. "You do not belong in the dark, Your Grace," she said quietly. "You are just hiding there." Thorn's breath hitched. For a moment, she thought he might shatter, but then he turned and walked away without another word. Serafina stood alone in the clearing. She looked down at the headstone. Eleanor Ashford, beloved wife, forever missed. She understood now. The Duke was not cold. He was afraid. Afraid to feel, afraid to love, afraid to let anyone close, because he had already lost everything. After that day, something shifted. Thorn did not apologize. He did not speak about his wife again. But he stopped treating Serafina like she was invisible. He began to ask her questions. "Where are you from, Miss Hale?" "Surrey, Your Grace." "Do you have family?" "My father passed last year. I have no siblings." A pause, then, quieter. "I am sorry." She glanced at him in surprise. He was looking at her, really looking at her. Not through her, not past her, at her. "Thank you, Your Grace." He nodded. Then he turned back to his book, but the wall between them had cracked. Just a little. Over the following weeks, the cracks grew wider. Thorn began to join Serafina for tea in the afternoons. He asked about her opinions on the books she read. He listened when she spoke. He even smiled once, just a faint quirk of his lips, when she made a dry comment about the terrible poetry in one of his volumes. "You have a sharp tongue, Miss Hale," he said. "I prefer to think of it as honest, Your Grace." His smile widened, just a fraction, but it was there. Serafina's heart fluttered. She was beginning to see the man beneath the ice, and he was nothing like she had expected. He was intelligent, He was kind when he forgot to guard himself. He had a dry sense of humor that caught her off guard, and when he looked at her, really looked at her, she felt like the only person in the world. But she also saw the way he pulled back whenever they grew too close, the way he shut down if she asked anything too personal, the way he stared at Eleanor's portrait in the hallway with eyes full of guilt. He was still trapped, and Serafina did not know how to free him. The turning point came on a cold October night. A storm had rolled in. Rain lashed against the windows. Thunder rumbled through the manor. Serafina was in the library, reading by candlelight, when Thorn entered. He looked terrible. His hair was disheveled. His cravat was loose. His eyes were dark with something she could not name. "Your Grace? Are you unwell?" "I cannot sleep." His voice was rough. "I have not slept in 3 days." Serafina set down her book. "Sit. I will make you tea." "I do not want tea." He crossed to the window. He pressed his hand against the glass. "I want to stop seeing her face every time I close my eyes." Serafina's chest ached. She stood and moved to his side. "Tell me about her." Thorn's jaw tightened. "Why?" "Because you have been carrying her alone for 3 years. Maybe it is time to let someone else help." He was silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, he began to speak. "She was light," he said. "Everything I was not. She laughed easily. She loved flowers and music and people. She made this house feel alive." His voice broke. "And I killed her." "Your Grace." "I did." He turned to face her. His eyes were raw. "She begged me not to have another child. She nearly died with the first, but I wanted an heir. I pushed her. I convinced her. And when she went into labor, I stood outside that door and listened to her scream for 14 hours. His hands were shaking. When they finally let me in, she was already gone. And the baby never even took a breath. Tears streamed down his face. He did not wipe them away. I killed them both, and I do not deserve to be happy. I do not deserve to move on. I do not deserve... Stop! Serafina grabbed his hands. Her own eyes were burning. You did not kill her. Childbirth is dangerous. It is not your fault. She would be alive if not for me. You do not know that. Serafina squeezed his hands. You cannot carry this guilt forever. It will destroy you. Good. His voice was fierce, broken. I want it to destroy me. Well, I do not want that. The words came out sharper than she intended. Thorn stared at her. I do not want you to destroy yourself, because you are not the monster you think you are. You are a man who loved his wife, who lost her, who is still grieving. And that is not weakness. That is not evil. That is being human. Thorn's breath was coming fast. His hands tightened around hers. Why do you care? Serafina's heart was pounding. She should pull away. She should step back. But she could not. Because I see you, she whispered. The real you, beneath the ice. And he is worth saving. Thorn's eyes searched hers. Something shifted in his expression. Something raw and desperate and... He kissed her. It was not gentle. It was fierce and hungry and full of 3 years of loneliness. His hands cupped her face. His lips were warm and demanding. Serafina gasped against his mouth and kissed him back. For one perfect moment, the world fell away. But then Thorn jerked back. His eyes were wide with horror. He stumbled backward. I should not have... Your Grace. Leave. His voice was cold again. Shut down. Get out. Now. Please, let me... Now. Serafina flinched. She turned and fled from the room. Her heart was breaking. Her lips still burned from his kiss. Behind her, she heard the sound of glass shattering. And she knew. She had just made everything worse. Thorn avoided her for the next 2 days. He sent Mrs. Davins with instructions. He took his meals alone. He did not summon her to read. Serafina felt like a ghost drifting through the manor. She had ruined everything. On the third day, she made her decision. She could not stay. Not like this. Not when every moment was agony. She packed her bag. She wrote a short letter of resignation. She left it on his desk, and then she went to say goodbye. She stood in his study doorway. He was at his desk, writing. He did not look up. "I am leaving now, Your Grace." His hand paused, but he said nothing. "Goodbye, Your Grace." She turned to leave. One step, then another. "Don't leave." The words stopped her cold. She turned. Thorn was standing. His hands were pressed against the desk. His face was pale. His eyes were desperate. "Don't leave," he said again, and this time his voice cracked. Serafina's bag hit the floor. "Why?" she whispered. "Why should I stay?" Thorn walked around the desk, slowly, as if each step hurt. He stopped in front of her, close enough that she could feel the heat of him, see the rapid rise and fall of his chest. "Because I am a coward," he said. His voice was raw. "Because I have been hiding for 3 years. Because I told myself I did not deserve to feel anything ever again. But then you walked into my house with your sharp tongue and your kind eyes, and you—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "You made me feel again, and it terrified me." Serafina's eyes burned. "You kissed me and then sent me away." "I know." He looked away. Shame flickered across his face. "I thought if I pushed you away, the pain would stop. But it did not. It got worse, because for the first time in 3 years, I realized what I was losing." He met her gaze again. "I am losing you, and I cannot—" His voice broke. "I cannot let that happen." "Why not?" "Because I need you." The words came out fierce, desperate. "I need you to stay. I need you to keep seeing me, the real me. I need—" He stopped. His jaw worked. "I need you, Serafina." It was the first time he had used her given name. Serafina's heart was pounding so hard, she thought it might burst. "You hurt me." "I know." He stepped closer. "And I will spend every day making up for it if you let me. But please—" His hand reached out, hesitated, then cupped her cheek. "Please do not leave. I have never asked anyone to stay. I have never let anyone close. But I am asking you. I am begging you." His thumb brushed away a tear she had not realized had fallen. "Stay." Serafina closed her eyes. She wanted to say yes. She wanted to fall into his arms and never let go. But what about Eleanor? Thorn flinched. His hand dropped. "I will always love her," he said quietly. "She was my wife, the mother of my child. I cannot erase that, and I will not pretend she did not exist. I am not asking you to. But I am not that man anymore." He met her eyes. "The man who loved Eleanor is gone. He died with her. I am someone new now, someone who has spent 3 years in the dark. And you," his voice softened, "you are the first light I have seen." Serafina's breath caught. "I do not know how to do this," Thorn continued. "I do not know how to open my heart again without feeling like I am betraying her. But I know that I cannot let you walk away." He took her hands. "So I am asking, stay. Help me learn how to live again." Serafina looked up at him, at this broken, beautiful man who had finally let her in. "I will stay," she whispered, "but on one condition. Anything. You stop punishing yourself. You stop hiding. You let yourself heal." Thorn's eyes closed. A shudder ran through him. "I do not know if I can." "Then let me help you." He opened his eyes, and for the first time she saw hope there. "All right," he said. "I will try." Serafina smiled. "That is all I ask." Thorn pulled her into his arms. He held her like she was the only thing keeping him standing. And maybe she was. "Thank you," he whispered into her hair. "Thank you for staying." Serafina wrapped her arms around him. "Thank you for asking." They stood there in the study, holding each other, as the storm outside finally began to clear. The next weeks were not easy. Thorn struggled. Some days were good. He smiled. He laughed. He took Serafina walking through the gardens and told her stories about his childhood. But some days were hard. He withdrew. He stared at Eleanor's portrait for hours. He woke from nightmares screaming her name. On those days, Serafina did not push. She simply sat with him. She held his hand. She reminded him that he was not alone. Slowly, painfully, he began to heal. He opened the curtains in the manor. He had the dust cloths removed from the furniture. He even smiled when Serafina brought in a vase of wildflowers for the library. "You are brightening my house," he said. "Is that a complaint, Your Grace?" "No." He looked at her, really looked at her. "It is a miracle." Serafina's heart swelled. They fell into a rhythm. Mornings in the library, afternoons in the gardens, evenings by the fire. They talked about everything: books, politics, dreams, fears. Thorn told her about his parents' cold marriage, about the pressure to be the perfect duke, about how Eleanor had been an escape from all of that. Serafina told him about her father's gambling debts, about selling everything she owned, about the fear of ending up on the streets. They shared their wounds, their scars, their secrets, and slowly they began to trust each other. But the past was not finished with them yet. One morning, a carriage arrived at Thornwick Estate. A woman stepped out. She was tall and elegant, dressed in deep purple. Her face was beautiful, but cold. Mrs. Davins came to find Serafina in the library. "His Grace requests your presence in the drawing room." Serafina's stomach tightened. "Who is the visitor?" Mrs. Davins's mouth was a thin line. "Lady Marjorie Ashford, His Grace's sister-in-law." Serafina's blood ran cold. Eleanor's sister. She followed Mrs. Davins to the drawing room. Thorn was standing by the window. His shoulders were tense. His jaw was tight. The woman, Lady Marjorie, was seated on the sofa. Her eyes swept over Serafina with cool assessment. "So this is the companion," Marjorie said. Her voice was smooth, cutting. "How quaint." "Marjorie?" Thorn's voice was hard. "Why are you here?" "I heard a rumor." Marjorie stood. She moved toward Serafina like a cat stalking prey. "I heard that you had hired a young woman, that you were spending time with her, that you were moving on." The last words were laced with venom. Thorn stepped between them. "What I do in my own home is none of your concern." "It is every bit my concern." Marjorie's eyes flashed. "You killed my sister. You do not get to be happy. You do not get to replace her with some common girl." Serafina flinched, but Thorn's voice was deadly calm. "Get out of my house." "No." Marjorie smiled. It was not a kind smile. "I came here to remind you of what you did, of what you owe Eleanor's memory, and I will not leave until you send this girl away." Thorn's hands fisted at his sides. "I did not kill Eleanor." "You might as well have." Marjorie's voice rose. "You pushed her to have another child. You ignored her fears. You cared more about your precious heir than about her life." "That is enough." Serafina stepped forward. Her heart was pounding, but her voice was steady. "You do not get to come here and torture him. He has suffered enough." Marjorie laughed. "Suffered? My sister is dead. Her child is dead. And he gets to live. He gets to find happiness again. That is not suffering. That is escaping justice." "Justice?" Serafina's hands were shaking. "You call cruelty justice? You call keeping a man trapped in grief for the rest of his life justice?" I call it what he deserves. Thorne's voice cut through the room. No. He was looking at Marjorie, but his eyes were clear, strong. I do not deserve to be punished forever. I loved Eleanor. I will always love her. But I did not kill her. And I will not let you, or anyone, keep me in chains because of what happened. Marjorie's face twisted. You dare. I dare. Thorne stepped forward. You have spent 3 years blaming me because you could not accept that sometimes terrible things happen, that death is not always someone's fault. But I am done accepting your blame. I am done living in darkness. He looked at Serafina, his eyes softened. Because I have found something worth living for. Serafina's eyes filled with tears. Marjorie's face went white with rage. If you choose her, I will make sure everyone knows what kind of man you are. I will destroy your reputation. I will... Do it. Thorne's voice was calm, final. I do not care, because the only opinion that matters to me is hers. He gestured to Serafina. Now get out of my house, and do not come back. Marjorie stared at him. For a moment, something like pain flickered across her face, but then it hardened into hate. You will regret this, she hissed. She swept from the room without another word. The door slammed behind her. Serafina's legs gave out. She sank onto the sofa. Thorne was beside her in an instant. Are you all right? I should ask you that. She looked up at him. She said terrible things. She has been saying terrible things for 3 years. Thorne took her hands. But today, I finally stopped listening. What changed? You. He smiled. It was small and sad and beautiful. You changed everything. Serafina's heart ached. What if she follows through on her threats? Then she does. Thorne cupped her face. I do not care what society thinks. I do not care about my reputation. I care about you. About us. About the life we can build together. Together? Serafina's voice was barely a whisper. If you will have me. Thorne's thumb brushed her cheek. I know I am broken. I know I am difficult. I know I have a long way to go before I am whole again. But I want to try. With you. Serafina's tears spilled over. Yes, she whispered. Yes. Thorne kissed her. It was soft and sweet and full of promise. And for the first time since entering Thornwick Estate, Serafina felt like she was home. But Marjorie was not finished. 2 weeks later, rumours began to spread. Whispers that the Duke of Thornwick had taken a mistress, that he was disrespecting his late wife's memory, that he was unfit to hold his title. Thorne ignored them, but Serafina could not. She saw the way the servants looked at her. She heard the whispers when she walked through town. She felt the weight of judgment pressing down on her shoulders. One night, she found Thorne in his study. He was staring at a letter. His face was grim. What is it? She asked. The magistrate has received a formal complaint. He looked up. His eyes were tired. Marjorie has accused me of improper conduct. She is demanding an investigation into Eleanor's death. Serafina's blood ran cold. Can she do that? She can try. Thorne set down the letter. But there is nothing to investigate. Eleanor died in childbirth. It was a tragedy, not a crime. But if they start asking questions, then I will answer them. He stood. He pulled her into his arms. I will not let her destroy us, Serafina. I will not let her win. But Serafina was afraid, because she had seen the kind of damage rumors could do, and she did not know if their fragile love could survive the storm coming their way. The investigation began 3 days later. The magistrate arrived with 2 clerks. They questioned the servants. They examined the household records. They even brought in the doctor who had attended Eleanor during her labor. Thorne answered every question calmly. He provided every document they requested. He never lost his composure. But Serafina could see the strain in his eyes. On the third day of the investigation, the magistrate called Serafina into the drawing room. He was a thin man, with cold eyes and a pinched mouth. "Miss Hale," he said, "how long have you been employed at Thornwick Estate?" 3 months, sir." "And what is the nature of your relationship with the Duke?" Serafina's heart pounded. She knew this was a trap. "I am his companion." "His companion?" The magistrate's lip curled. "And is that all?" "I assist with correspondence. I manage his library. I read to him in the evenings." "And do you share his bed?" Serafina's face burned. "That is an inappropriate question." "It is a relevant question, Miss Hale. Lady Marjorie has suggested that you have seduced the Duke, that you have taken advantage of a grieving man." "That is not true." Serafina's voice shook. "I have done nothing improper. The Duke and we care for each other, but we have conducted ourselves with honor." "Honor?" The magistrate leaned back in his chair. "A common girl with no family and no prospects claims to have captured a duke's heart. Forgive me if I find that difficult to believe." Serafina stood. "I do not care what you believe. I know the truth, and so does the Duke." "The Duke is not in his right mind." The magistrate's voice was hard. "He has been unstable since his wife's death, and you have manipulated him for your own gain." "That is a lie." "Is it?" The magistrate smiled. It was not a kind smile. "We shall see." Serafina left the room shaking. She found Thorn in the library. He took one look at her face and pulled her into his arms. "What did he say?" "He thinks I am using you." Serafina's voice broke. "He thinks I am manipulating you." Thorn's jaw tightened. "He is wrong." "But what if he convinces others? What if they take your title? What if—" "Serafina." Thorn tilted her face up. His eyes were fierce. "I do not care what they take. My title, my estate, my reputation. None of it matters if I lose you." "But—" "No." He kissed her forehead. "We will get through this. Together." Serafina wanted to believe him, but fear was a cold weight in her chest. The magistrate's report came 1 week later. Thorn read it in his study. Serafina stood beside him, her hands gripping the back of his chair. "What does it say?" Thorn set down the paper. He looked up at her, and he smiled. "It says there is no evidence of wrongdoing, that Eleanor's death was a tragic accident, that I am of sound mind and fit to hold my title." Serafina's knees went weak with relief. "Thank God." "There is more." Thorn pulled her into his lap. "The magistrate has issued a formal censure against Marjorie for filing a false complaint. She is banned from contacting me or setting foot on my estate." "Is it truly over?" "It is over." Thorn cupped her face. "We are free, Serafina. We can finally live without shadows." Serafina kissed him. It was deep and fierce and full of relief. Thorn kissed her back, his hands tangling in her hair. When they finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he whispered. Serafina's breath caught. "What?" "Marry me." Thorn's eyes were bright. "I know it is fast. I know we have only known each other for a few months. But I do not want to wait. I do not want to waste another moment. I want you to be my wife, my partner, my love." Serafina's eyes filled with tears. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." Thorn kissed her again, and this time there was no fear, no shadows, no ghosts, only love. They were married in the manor's small chapel 1 month later. It was a quiet ceremony. No grand guests, no elaborate decorations, just Thorn and Serafina and a handful of servants who had become their friends. Thorn wore black, but for the first time it did not look like mourning. Serafina wore a simple cream dress with wildflowers in her hair. When the vicar pronounced them husband and wife, Thorn kissed her like she was the air he needed to breathe. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. I love you too. They walked out of the chapel into the sunlight. The gardens were beginning to bloom again. The manor no longer looked haunted. It looked like a home. That night, they stood together in their bedroom. Serafina was nervous. She had never been with a man before. Thorn sensed her fear. He took her hands. We do not have to do anything tonight. I want to. Serafina looked up at him. I want to be yours, completely. Thorn's eyes darkened with desire, but he moved slowly, gently. He kissed her until she melted against him. He undressed her with reverent hands. He whispered her name like a prayer. And when they finally came together, it was not just desire. It was healing. It was hope. It was two broken people becoming whole. Afterward, Thorn held her close. His fingers traced patterns on her bare shoulder. I thought I would never feel this way again, he said quietly. After Eleanor died, I thought I was done, that love was over for me. And now? Now I know that love does not end. He kissed her hair. It changes, it grows, and sometimes, if you are very lucky, it comes back in a new form. Serafina smiled. I am the lucky one. No, my love. Thorn tilted her face up. His eyes were warm, full of light. We both are. The months that followed were the happiest of Serafina's life. Thorn was not perfect. He still had days when the grief overwhelmed him. He still visited Eleanor's grave to talk to her. He still carried guilt. But he was healing. And Serafina was there every step of the way. They opened the manor fully. They hosted dinners. They invited the villagers to celebrate harvest festivals in the gardens. They laughed and danced and lived. And slowly, the whispers about the Duke and his common wife faded. Because people could see the truth. They were in love. One spring morning, Serafina woke feeling ill. She barely made it to the wash basin before she was sick. Thorn was beside her in an instant, holding her hair back. Are you all right? I think so. Serafina wiped her mouth. It must have been something I ate. But when it happened again the next morning, and the morning after that, Thorn called for the doctor. The old physician examined her. Then he smiled. Congratulations, Your Grace. You are with child. Serafina's world stopped. Her hand went to her stomach. A baby. She was going to have a baby. She looked at Thorn. His face had gone pale. His eyes were wide with fear. Thorn? She whispered. He stood abruptly. Excuse me. He left the room without another word. Serafina's heart sank. She knew why he was afraid. The last time he had been in this situation, he had lost everything. She found him in the gardens. He was standing in front of Eleanor's grave. His shoulders were shaking. Thorn. He did not turn around. I cannot lose you, he said. His voice was raw, broken. I cannot go through that again. You will not lose me. Serafina moved to his side. She took his hand. I am strong. The doctor says I am healthy, and I will fight with everything I have to come back to you. You do not know that. Thorn's eyes were wet. Eleanor was healthy too, and she died anyway. I know you are afraid. Serafina cupped his face. I am afraid too, but we cannot let fear steal our joy. We have to trust. We have to hope. Thorn closed his eyes. Tears slipped down his cheeks. I do not know if I can. Then let me be strong for both of us. Serafina smiled through her own tears. Let me believe enough for both of us. Thorn pulled her into his arms. He held her so tightly she could barely breathe. I love you, he whispered fiercely. I love you so much. I love you too, and we are going to get through this, together. The pregnancy was not easy. Serafina was sick for weeks. She lost weight. She was exhausted. Thorn barely left her side. He held her when she was ill. He read to her when she could not sleep. He whispered reassurances when her own fear rose up. As her belly grew, so did his terror. He hired the best midwife in the county. He brought in a physician from London. He made sure Serafina had everything she needed. But nothing eased his fear. One night, when Serafina was 7 months along, she found him in the library. He was staring at the fire. His face was drawn, haunted. "Thorn," she lowered herself carefully into the chair beside him. "You have to stop torturing yourself." "I cannot." His voice was hollow. "Every day I wake up terrified that this will be the day I lose you." "And every day I am still here." Serafina took his hand. She placed it on her swollen belly. "Feel that? Our baby is strong. I am strong. We are going to be fine." Thorn's hands spread across her stomach. His eyes filled with tears when he felt the baby kick. "What if something goes wrong?" he whispered. "Then we will face it together." Serafina leaned forward. "But you cannot live in fear, Thorn. You cannot let the past steal the present." "I do not know how to stop." "Then trust me." She smiled. "Trust that I am fighting for us, for you, for our child." Thorn kissed her. It was soft and desperate and full of love. "I trust you," he whispered. "I trust you." Serafina went into labor on a cold December night. The pain started just after midnight. Thorn woke to find her gripping the sheets, her face pale. "It is time," she gasped. Thorn's face went white, but he did not freeze. He called for the midwife. He sent a servant for the doctor. He helped Serafina to the birthing room and stayed by her side. The midwife tried to send him out. "Your Grace, it is not proper." "I am not leaving." Thorn's voice was hard, final. "I was not there when Eleanor died. I will not make that mistake again." Serafina squeezed his hand. "Stay," she whispered. "Please stay." So he stayed. The labor was long, painful. Serafina screamed, she cried, she begged for it to be over. And through it all, Thorn was there, holding her hand, wiping her forehead, whispering that she was strong, that she could do this, that he loved her. As the hours dragged on, fear clawed at his chest. He saw Eleanor in every cry of pain. He heard her dying breaths in every gasp, but he did not leave. Finally, just as dawn broke, the midwife shouted, "Push! One more time!" Serafina screamed. And then, the sound of a baby crying filled the room. Thorn's knees went weak. The midwife wrapped the baby in a blanket. She smiled. "It is a boy, Your Grace. A healthy boy." Serafina collapsed back against the pillows. Her face was pale and slick with sweat, but she was smiling. "A boy," she whispered. The midwife placed the baby in Serafina's arms. Thorn stared down at his son. He was tiny, red-faced, perfect. "He is beautiful," Thorn whispered. His voice broke. "He is perfect." Serafina looked up at him. Her eyes were tired but full of love. "We did it." "You did it." Thorn cupped her face. Tears streamed down his cheeks. "You are a miracle." "We are a family," Serafina said softly. "We are whole." Thorn kissed her. Then he kissed his son's forehead. And for the first time in years, he felt truly, completely happy. They named the boy Edmund. He had Thorn's dark hair and Serafina's bright eyes. He was loud and demanding, and utterly adored by everyone in the manor. Thorn was a devoted father. He held Edmund constantly. He sang to him, badly, but with such love that it did not matter. He stood over the cradle for hours, just watching his son sleep. Serafina watched him with a full heart. "You are a good father," she said one night. Thorn looked up. His eyes were soft. I am trying. You are doing more than trying. She moved to his side. You are loving him, completely, without fear. I am still afraid, Thorn admitted. Every time he coughs, every time he cries, I think... He stopped, swallowed hard. But you do not let the fear stop you, Serafina said gently. You love him anyway. That is what makes you strong. Thorn pulled her into his arms. I learned that from you. You learned it from yourself, Serafina smiled up at him. You just needed someone to remind you. On Edmund's first birthday, Thorn took Serafina and the baby to the gardens. They stood in front of Eleanor's grave. Thorn held Edmund in his arms. Serafina stood beside him. I want to tell her about him, Thorn said quietly. Is that all right? Of course, Serafina squeezed his hand. Thorn looked down at the headstone. Eleanor, he said softly, I want you to meet someone. This is Edmund, our son. He paused, took a breath. I know you would have loved him. I know you would have been a wonderful mother. And I am sorry, so sorry, that you did not get that chance. His voice broke. Serafina slipped her arm around his waist. But I want you to know that I am happy, Thorn continued. I am happy, and I am loved, and I am not alone. And I hope, wherever you are at peace, that you have forgiven me, that you want me to be happy. A breeze rustled through the trees. A single white flower fell from a nearby rosebush and landed on the grave. Thorn smiled through his tears. Thank you, he whispered. Serafina rested her head on his shoulder. Edmund babbled happily in his father's arms, and Thorn knew in that moment that he had finally let go. Not of Eleanor's memory, but of the guilt, the pain, the fear. He had finally forgiven himself. 5 years later. Thornwick Estate was alive with laughter. Edmund was 5 now, a wild, energetic boy who loved horses and stories and climbing trees. His little sister Clara was 3. She had Serafina's curls and Thorn's stubborn streak. The manor was no longer cold. Fires burned in every hearth. Flowers filled every room. Music drifted through the halls. And Thorn, the Duke of Thornwick, who had once been so cold and broken, smiled every single day. He stood in the gardens one evening, watching his children chase each other through the flowers. Serafina stood beside him, her hand in his. Do you ever think about that night? She asked softly. When I tried to leave? Thorn looked at her. His eyes were warm, full of love. Every day. And I thank God I found the courage to ask you to stay. He lifted her hand to his lips. You saved me, Serafina. You brought me back to life. You saved yourself, Serafina said. I just reminded you how. Thorn pulled her into his arms. He kissed her deeply, and when they pulled apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I love you, he whispered, more than words can say. I love you too, Serafina smiled. Always. Edmund's voice rang out across the garden. Papa, come play! Thorn laughed. Duty calls. He ran toward his children, scooping them both up and spinning them around. Their laughter filled the air. Serafina watched them, her heart full to bursting. Once, this manor had been a place of darkness, a place of grief and ghosts. But now, it was filled with light, with love, with life. And it was all because one cold, broken duke had finally found the courage to whisper 2 simple words. Don't leave.